All right, let's dive into something that's changing how we think about work, like really changing it. The gig economy.
Yeah, it's a huge topic.
It is. We're going to go way deeper than just like, ordering takeout or ride-sharing apps, right?
Aye.
We're talking about like the whole landscape, the amazing parts, the not so amazing parts, all of it.
It really is an entirely new landscape, a new way of thinking about work.
Exactly. And we've got a ton of sources to help us break it all down. YouTube videos, some research data. We've got stuff from Dr. Easy Explainer, Words and Meanings Explained, Politics Explored.
It's amazing to see how many different people are talking about this now.
Isn't it? Shows you how big of a deal it is.
Okay, so first things first, we got to define what we're actually talking about here.
Yeah, good point.
Words and Meanings Explained puts it pretty simply. The gig economy is a labor market characterized by the prevalence of short-term contracts or freelance work as opposed to permanent jobs. Basically, it flips the script on the whole 9-to-5 thing. Instead of being an employee, you're like an independent contractor, taking on projects for a certain amount of time.
Okay, so think of it like, imagine you're like a blacksmith, right?
Okay, I like this.
Back in the day, you might have worked for just one lord, making all their swords and armor. But in the gig economy, you're free to take on projects from different lords and ladies. Like, you could make a fancy helmet for one, then a set of horseshoes for another. You choose.
I see. You have way more autonomy.
Exactly.
And like you said, you can choose the projects that are most interesting to you or pay the best.
Right. But, and this is important, there are trade-offs. Like, we saw some data from Texto Pagado that showed, after expenses, some Uber drivers aren't earning as much as you might think.
That's something people don't always realize.
Definitely. It's easy to get caught up in the hype, but you got to be realistic,
For sure. Go in with your eyes open.
Absolutely. Okay, but before we get too deep into the downsides, let's talk about what makes this whole gig thing so appealing in the first place. Why is it blowing up like this?
Right.
Well, our research from Everything BZK and Politics Explored points to a couple big things. Technology is a huge one, right?
Totally.
Smartphones, apps, all that. Makes it so easy to connect, find work, get things done.
Yeah, like instantly.
But it's more than just the tech. It's like a shift in what people want from work these days.
Definitely. People want more flexibility, more control over their schedules, over their lives.
100%. Like Politics Explored really emphasized that. They were talking about how it ties into this whole bigger trend of remote work and work-life balance. Like, all this stuff is connected.
Right. It's like a whole societal shift.
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh, and get this. Our tech source mentioned a study that found 70% of freelancers who choose this life, they're not forced into it.
Right.
They're actually happier than those stuck in traditional jobs.
That is pretty interesting.
Isn't it? They love the independence, the flexibility.
I mean, it makes sense. Being your own boss, setting your own hours, having more variety in your work, those are all really appealing things.
Okay, so let's break down those perks, like really get into it. What is it about the gig economy that people love so much?
Sure.
Well, Politics Explored and Everything by ZK both said flexibility is huge GE.
Yeah, that comes up a lot.
And it makes sense. You can choose your hours, work from wherever.
And I think it's not just about like being lazy or whatever, right? It's about people having different needs.
Totally.
Like imagine you're a parent who has to be home for the kids after school, or someone who's, taking care of a family member. The gig economy can give you that flexibility.
Exactly. Or even just like someone who wants to travel and work at the same time.
Oh, yeah, the digital nomad thing.
It's a whole thing. Okay. Then there's the earning potential, right? Like Politics Explored talked about how you can use gig work to supplement your income.
That's a big draw for a lot of people.
It is. Pay off some debt, save up for a vacation, whatever. You don't have to commit to a whole full-time thing.
You can just do it on the side when you have the time.
Exactly. And then another thing that Politics Explored mentioned is the chance to try different things, get different experiences.
That's one of the cool things about the gig economy. It's not like you're stuck in one career track. You can explore different fields, learn new skills.
Yeah, you could start with, social media management, then try freelance writing, then who knows what. It's like a choose-your-own-adventure career.
And that kind of adaptability is so valuable these days. The job market is constantly changing. You got to be able to keep up.
For sure. And our tech source even said that the gig economy can be a good way to test the waters of entrepreneurship.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
If you're thinking about starting your own business, you can try freelancing first. Build your skills, get some experience, see if you even like it.
It's lower risk.
Way lower risk. Okay, and then, of course, we can't forget the big one, being your own boss.
That's a huge part of the appeal for sure.
Everything by ZK really emphasized that. They were talking about how it gives you control over your priorities, your schedule, your whole work-life balance.
And that sense of autonomy can be really empowering for people. You're not answering to a boss, you're calling the shots.
It's like being the captain of your own ship. You decide where you're going, how you're going to get there.
It's appealing, I get it.
Totally. But, and there's always a but, right?
Right.
As we said earlier, there are downsides to this whole gig thing. Like, we talked about the potential for lower earnings, and we got to be honest, there's a whole lot more where that came from.
Yeah, it's not all sunshine and roses. There are some real challenges that gig workers face.
Challenges that can affect, your financial security, your benefits, even your long-term career prospects.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to get into next.
In part 2 of our deep dive, we're going to explore the shadow side of the gig economy, the stuff they don't always tell you about. So buckle up, it's about to get real.
Looking forward to it.
All right, so we're back, and it's time to face the music a little bit. We talked about all the amazing stuff the gig economy offers, but
But it's not always easy.
it's not. There's a whole other side to this that we got to talk about. The downsides.
Challenges.
Exactly. And we've got a lot to unpack here. We've got insights from Words and Meanings Explained, Politics Explored, Business Thinking Hub, a whole bunch of sources.
Yeah, they all kind of hit on some of the same key issues.
Like, okay, first and foremost, jobs security, or should I say the lack of it.
Right. We're talking about short-term contracts here.
Yeah.
Gigs. It's not like a regular job where you know you're going to get a paycheck every 2 weeks.
Business Thinking Hub really drove that point home, like how tough it can be to plan financially when your income is all over the place.
It's hard to budget, hard to save, hard to get a loan.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's the whole benefits thing.
Yeah, that's a big one.
No health insurance from an employer, no retirement plan, no paid sick leave.
Words and Meanings Explained and Politics Explored, they both brought that up. It's like you're on your own.
Which can be scary, especially if you get sick or, something unexpected happens.
You got to build your own safety net, basically.
And that can be expensive. Okay, and then there's competition. Lots and lots of competition.
Oh, yeah. That's something Politics Explored really highlighted.
They talked about this race to the bottom thing where, like, everyone's undercutting each other just to get gigs.
And that drives down wages, obviously.
Yeah.
Makes it even harder to make a living. Wealth-wise Wave, they were pretty concerned about that, too.
And it's kind of a vicious cycle, right? Because the more people join these platforms, the more competition there is.
Supply and demand. Simple economics.
But not so simple when it's your livelihood,
Definitely not. And then on top of all that, there's the lack of a clear career path.
Right. Politics Explored talked about how in the gig economy, it can feel like you're just hopping from one project to the next.
No real sense of progression.
Exactly. You might not be building specialized skills, getting promotions, all that stuff you'd get in a traditional job.
And that can be frustrating for some people.
Oh, yeah. Especially if you're someone who's like really ambitious, wants to move up in their field.
Right.
And then there's the isolation factor. We touched on that a little before, but Politics Explored really emphasized it. Like working from home all the time, being on your own.
It can get lonely.
It can. You miss out on that social interaction you get in an office, the water cooler talk, the, just being around other people.
It can take a toll on your mental health, for sure.
Yeah, and it can even affect your professional development.
Because networking is still important, even in the gig economy.
Oh, absolutely. All right, so we've painted a pretty grim picture here, but
there's hope.
There is, and that's what makes all this so interesting, because, it's not all doom and gloom.
Politics Explored, Business Thinking Hub, Wealth-Wise Wave, they all talked about potential solutions, things that could make the gig economy fairer, more sustainable.
Like better for the workers.
Right. And that's where it gets exciting.
All right, so we've talked about the good, the bad, the ugly of the gig economy. Where do we go from here? What's next?
Well, nobody has a crystal ball, right?
Right.
But our sources, they had some interesting ideas about what the future might hold. Like Politics Explored, they think this is just the beginning. They think the lines between traditional jobs and freelance work are just going to get blurrier and blurrier.
So like more hybrid models.
Yeah, exactly. Companies might offer a mix of like full-time roles with benefits and gig-style projects.
Ooh, that would be kind of cool. Best of both worlds.
Right. You could have the stability of a steady paycheck, but also the flexibility to take on extra work, try new things.
I like it. What else did our sources say?
Well, Everything BZK. They highlighted this whole trend of hyper-specialization.
Hyperspecialization, what's that?
Basically, it's like, you know how AI is getting really good at matching people with jobs?
Yeah.
Well, they think it's going to get even more sophisticated.
Yeah.
Like, it'll be able to connect you with clients who need your very specific skills and interests.
Wait. So, like, if I'm really good at, I don't know, underwater basket weaving.
Exactly. The algorithm could find you clients who are specifically looking for an underwater basket weaver.
That's wild.
Right. In Business Thinking Hub, they took it a step further. They talked about how this could lead to the formation of, like, specialized gig communities.
Oh, so like all the underwater basket weavers would get together?
Basically, they could share resources, advocate for better pay, maybe even create their own shared healthcare plan.
Whoa, that would be awesome.
It would be. It's like taking back some of that power that's often lost in the gig economy.
Right. Okay, but we got to talk about the big elephant in the room here, right?
AI.
AI, automation.
Yeah, that's something that came up a lot in our research.
Like everything BAZK talked about how AI could both disrupt and de-empower gig workers.
It's a double-edged sword for sure.
On the one hand, people are worried that robots are going to take over all the gigs.
Right. But it's probably not going to be that simple.
So what, are we all going to be out of a job?
Probably not.
Yeah.
It's more likely that AI is going to change the kinds of gigs that are available.
How so?
Well, think about it. AI is really good at automating routine tasks.
Yeah.
So instead of spending hours on things like invoicing or scheduling, you could have AI handle that stuff for you.
Oh, so it would free up our time to focus on more, like, creative stuff.
Exactly. You could focus on the high-value work that actually requires human skills and ingenuity.
That makes sense. But even if it all works out like that, there's still the whole issue of fairness.
Right. That's something WealthWise Wave was really passionate about. They were talking about the need for ethical AI, basically.
Ethical AI. Yeah.
Like, we need to make sure these algorithms aren't biased against certain groups of people.
Oh, yeah. Like, we don't want a situation where the algorithm is giving all the high-paying gigs to one type of person and leaving everyone else behind.
Exactly. That would just make the inequalities in the gig economy even worse. So we got to be really careful about how we develop and use these technologies.
It's not just about the tech itself. It's about how we use it.
Exactly. And that brings us back to the power of individual choice.
Okay. I like where this is going.
Look, the gig economy isn't for everyone, and that's okay.
Right.
It's about knowing yourself, knowing your needs, your goals, your risk tolerance.
Yeah.
Like, some people thrive in that kind of independent, flexible environment.
Yeah.
And some people really need the stability and structure of a traditional job.
And there's no shame in either one, right?
Absolutely not. It's about finding what works for you.
I love that. So, okay, bottom line. What should people do if they're thinking about diving into the gig economy?
Well, first and foremost, do your research. Learn as much as you can about the platforms, the types of gigs that are out there, the potential earnings, the challenges.
Don't just jump in blindly.
Right. And once you've done your research, network. Connect with other freelancers. Learn from their experiences.
Build a community.
Exactly. And always be learning. Always be improving your skills. The gig economy is constantly evolving, so you got to stay ahead of the curve.
It's a lot to keep up with, but it sounds exciting too.
It is. It's challenging, but it can also be incredibly rewarding.
Okay, so last thoughts. What's the takeaway here?
Well, the gig economy is here to stay. It's changing the way we work, whether we like it or not.
It's the future.
Maybe. But it's a future that we can shape. We have a choice. We can let it become this, wild west of exploitation, or we can work together to make it fairer, more sustainable, more beneficial for everyone.
So it's not just about individual choices, it's about collective action too.
It's about both. It's about individuals taking control of their careers, and working together to create a better system.
I love that. All right, well, that's it for our deep dive into the gig economy. We hope you learned something, maybe even got inspired to take action.
Thanks for listening.
And remember, keep exploring, keep asking questions, keep shaping the future of work. We'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive.